Welcome back to the Life of Tash Mia. I'm Tash. In this episode, we sit down with Penelope, who shares her journey of self-discovery and breaking free from societal pressures. She was on Team Guy on The Voice and is a proud bisexual singer and performer. Join us as we explore what it means to be truly authentic, challenge the misconceptions around bisexuality, and celebrate the freedom of living on your own terms. Welcome, Penelope.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Can you give us a little bit of a background of who Penelope is, how you became you?
Yeah, it's a long story. I've been a singer for my whole life. I realized I wanted to be a singer when I was like 5, and I kind of committed to that path sort of ever since, slowly diving into other things here and there, but yeah, sticking to singing. And then in terms of my sexuality, that unfolded later on in my life. I think that's better.
Was there any like pivotal moments like where you discovered you were bisexual, or was it more like a gradual thing that just came on?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was kissing boys and girls. It definitely feeling like kissing girls was wrong, like it was something that shouldn't be allowed. So I was sneaking behind the library to do that. But I remember specifically thinking like, oh, well, I like guys and I don't think I'll marry a woman as a mature 15-year-old because I thought I knew everything. And so like, therefore I'm not gay, so I'm straight and that thing is just there. And it didn't really click to me that bisexuality was an option or like it felt like a transitional phase because that's kind of how I always perceived it. And then cut to like my mid-20s, I expressed to a long-term boyfriend early on in our relationship that I was interested in women and wanted to experience threesomes with him, and that wasn't received very well. Who knew? And so, yeah, then I actually shut that side of me down, and as we can all guess, that went really, really well.
As it always does.
As it always does. So, yeah, then eventually after 5.5 years of that relationship, we split, and literally a month of being single, I had my first experience with a woman, which was also my first threesome. At the same time, I don't do things by halves. And yeah, that's when I sort of officially accepted my bisexuality. But up until that point, I'd considered myself bi-curious. I've always loved the queer community and held them in such high regard. And it really mattered to me that I knew 100% that it was for me before claiming an identity that I really like respect. So, yeah, for me, I wanted to experience that, to be like, okay, yes, this is me. And I find that a lot of bisexuals do feel that way.
I think also, I want to go back to something else you said as well, but I think also you're right. People think, is this just a phase? I've heard a lot of women, even myself probably as growing up, I'm like, okay, well, I like women, but I'd never been in a long-term relationship with one. That's something I hear quite a lot.
Yeah.
But you said when you were kind of like, kissing behind the library, you felt it was wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know where that came from?
No, I don't. I think it was a lack of representation. Like there was, like I didn't see that happening. Only in, just you don't see it in TV shows or movies or anything like that. And any reference to gayness was wrong. Like it always had a scandal and taboo, like an element of taboo-ness about it. So it was like anything that was queer was wrong. So I think that was it.
And you're right, like I know it's changing now in the last few years. There's definitely more representation, but we don't have to go back that far where there wasn't a lot. I grew up quite interestingly, with my aunt in a long-term gay relationship. They were married for them. Obviously, it wasn't legalized here until recently, and it's actually the only successful marriage in my entire family. So for me, it was never strange. Yeah. And I think I didn't appreciate it growing up or even in my young adulthood how fortunate that was. Because for me, it was like, so what? And now my sister is about to get married to a woman next month. And it's interesting, actually, because my sister even had a interesting journey into finding she's a lesbian, identifies as a lesbian currently. And her journey took her a while to get there, even though she had the same upbringing with me where it was seen as normal, but she went to the army after school. And in the army back in those days, it was not accepted at all. And I asked her later in life, like, why did it take you so long to kind of figure it out? Because we grew up in a family where it was so accepted. Like, if you were going to find a family to be brought up with and be that way, it would have been ours because it was just normal. And she's like, it wasn't that. I think it was the army, because she had a struggle through school. We went to a private girls' school, quite conservative. She did not fit in. She didn't fit in at all. And she's like, by the time I got to the army, all I wanted to do was to fit in, and I didn't want to rock the boat. And that's where it came from. So it's interesting, even though she was exposed to it and that was represented in our family, because it wasn't accepted in the places she was, such as the army, and again, I'm sure the military services is changing now, if you're not seeing it represented in the groups that you associate with, you're probably going to shut it down. Is that why it's been so important for you as like a singer to be out and proud as queer?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that makes so much sense. Like we're programmed like as social beings to fit in, and like that's safety in numbers. Like, so if you don't fit in, you're not safe, you will be rejected and you'll be on your own. So it makes a lot of sense that your sister went through that. But yeah, representation just means so much to me. And also my mum is actually gay, but she came out, she's come out twice. She's had a great journey. Sorry, Mum, I'm airing your experience. But so she was out before my dad, and then they got married and had 4 kids and and then divorced. And then, yeah, she met her wife and they've been together for 18 years now. But again, that representation wasn't there when I was going through like my teens.
Did you know about?
No, so my mum and dad divorced like sort of at, I guess, the end of year 11, and then mum and her wife Michelle met when I was in year 12. So that's when I was in year 12, mum came out to me then, and it was not a big deal. Like, mum had gay friends. Apparently, can I side note story? Yeah. Okay, it's so random. But apparently when I was 3, mum had like one of her gay friends over, and apparently I was obsessed with him, and it fits. And I was like, Justin, I've got a present for you. And they were sitting in the lounge room. And so he was like, okay, great. And I left and I opened the door, and then I like pole danced on the door for him as a present. Yeah, I was 3. So I feel like I've always been connected. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But so I've always had gayness, like queerness around me. But even still, yeah. So yeah, it just wasn't, it didn't click. I was just like, oh, I love the community. I've got so many gay friends. I'm in the arts. But there was still something missing. And that bisexual representation just wasn't super present. Like, I didn't get it, which is fine. Like, you know, I'm grateful for what I've experienced because of it.
That connection with the queer community, as we said, is very important in your work. How do you, like, what's the work that you do with the queer community and what you do in performances? How does that manifest with you? Yeah,
so when I started, a huge evolution to myself as an artist actually came through the queer community. So during lockdown, or when things started to open up and we could go back into venues and stuff, my best friend, who's a gay man, invited me to Universal, and they were having they have Sunday shenanigans every Sunday, which is kind of like open mic but for drag. And he just asked if I could get up and sing, and so I jumped up and I sang, and I ended up following like 6 encores. Then people just kept on asking me to sing, which was super lovely. And so from then on, I kept going in and I kept performing, and I would like see all of their artistry and just was shifting out of the space that I was in, which was like, you know, beautiful jumpsuits with like flowers in my hair and stuff. And then I I elevated the look to like, you know, giant braided ponytails and no pants, which was like a big deal for me, having like body conscious issues and all that kind of stuff. So I have to credit a huge part of my evolution to the queer community and the drag community. And so from there, I just feel like I've spent most of my time doing my own music in that space, and I feel so safe and so celebrated in that space. And people say a lot, oh, you shouldn't pigeonhole yourself and whatnot, and that's fine, fair enough. But like that's where my people are, is in those spaces.
It's a beautiful thing to like evolve as an artist, and it's beautiful that you said that's really that community has really embraced you and helped you and become who you are now, because I think it's so important as humans we keep evolving. Don't stay stagnant, because if you're not evolving, to me, you're dead.
Totally.
Did you face any challenges when you finally like came out as bisexual?
Yeah, I mean, not too many. Like, you know, some people would, you know, they would think you're saying it for clout, or, you know, just you'd be challenged. Like, you know, are you just saying it so you can, like, oh, you kiss a girl, so now you say you're bisexual, so now you're a part of the community. And I'm like, I just kind of pity those people that I'm strong enough in my sexuality to know that I can stand up against them. I feel for other people that aren't, or that aren't as far along on their journey to be able to do that yet, and who, but yeah, I've been called not gay enough and not straight enough and all that bullshit. Definitely.
I get that, like in the kink community, I'm like, not kinky enough, not vanilla enough.
God.
It's just like, you can never please everyone.
No.
So what do you think, you know, we mentioned before that a lot of women have struggles coming out about being bisexual, because they're like, oh, yeah, am I bisexual enough?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any other like misconceptions people have about, you know, coming out as bisexual, male or female?
Yeah, I think that, so they're very different experiences. The misconceptions around women finding their sexuality is that they're doing it for attention. They kind of want it all. They're selfish, they're hypersexual. Women, I think historically, I mean, we know are historically ashamed for their sexuality in general, regardless of sexuality, where they land. And with men are shamed around, either being too gay or too straight. So they're too straight for, you know, gay men, and they're too gay for straight girls. And so I think those are the biggest obstacles that they will face. And I mean, even now, actually, the discrimination law doesn't cover bisexuals. So that's something that the latest Mardi Gras parade that we did, Bi Plus Visibility, that's what we were drawing attention to. The float was called Legally Bi, and we rewrote the lyrics to Legally Blonde to be legally bi. It was so camp. We were all Elle Woods. It was amazing. And because the discrimination law of New South Wales doesn't cover bisexuals. So if you're discriminated against in the workplace because you're bi, you actually don't have a leg to stand on. If you're gay or trans, you do. But you have to, if you were to submit a case, you would need to say that you're gay. You wouldn't be able to say that you're bi.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I had no idea, and I was like, well, this is not okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, you saying there is a different experience for women and men. I completely agree, especially, you know, where we are in Australia. I find that bisexuality in women is almost more accepted.
Oh, yeah.
100%, because it's seen as like sexy, like girl on girl, porn, whatever it is. It's much easier. And also, not just even bisexuality, the bi-curious, if you go into especially like the sex party scene, I've seen this a lot. Girl on girl action, even if they're not bisexual, in and out, no one then labels that girl. She's not labeled as anything afterwards. A dude does it, he gets labeled. Okay. And I see that for guys, because it's not seen as so like, the cis white men haven't deemed that as hot, because they're probably too scared what that would say on their own sexuality. I think it makes it a lot harder for men to explore their sexuality, which I'm like, I feel really sorry for people in that way, because I'm like, I almost feel it's a little bit easier in being a female to explore that these days than if you're a traditional cis hetero man. If you're like, I'd like to explore this, but I'm so scared of getting labeled from the experience. And I still think it happens.
100%. I've seen it happen. Even my ex was he felt more comfortable to say that he was heteroflexible than bisexual. And I knew his sexuality, like I saw the extent of it. And I was like, no, sweetie, you're bi, like, and that's okay. But really struggled to just come to terms with it and accept it. And yeah, and it is so sad. I've had gay guys, like I've been performing at gay parties and surrounded by, I freaking love gay men, surrounded by all of them. And I've had some come up to me and say, hey, Penelope, and I don't know these people. And they're just like, I think I might be bi, but I don't feel safe enough in my own friendship group with all these queer men, gay men, because they take away, your gay card.
It's exactly, you're 100% on that. We need to think about the reverse, not just like the cis male, hetero males, but you're right, once you're in like a community or the gay community, people seem to almost be attached to it so much and they're so scared. And also that community, like we need to look at why the community is not going to support them. It's like you've got to like be on the team or be not on the team, and it's really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
What does it mean to you to be an open and proud bisexual performer? Like you could have easily just had a career and be a singer and a performer and be flamboyant or whatever you want to be. Why was it for you so important that you attach yourself to that?
I love this question. It's because it gives me a purpose. Like I've always loved singing. I'm very passionate about singing. I will geek out at any moment if anyone opens the door. And that's relatable to people who love to sing. And outside of that, I was just like, I love everyone, la, 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 And then I went through my journey of my sexuality and seeing the queer community and just being like completely opened up to that world and the kink world and everything. And I was like, nah, this is like art has to stand for something. And before then I was just like a lovely person, you know what I mean? I was just like, I just want everyone to be nice and friendly and get along. And I still want that. But I didn't feel like I had this, I didn't feel like I was standing up for anything. And then going through my own little journey, which, wasn't traumatic or anything, but just having my own experiences, I'm like, no, this really matters to me. Like, and, meeting people who I've had people come up to me and say that they didn't realize they were bi until my representation. So my representation in the scene, they were like, you're the reason that I realized I was bi. And that just like, that still gets me so emotional.
Well, you're giving people what you didn't have.
Yeah.
You're giving that representation, and that is very important. And as anyone to develop into anything, as we've discussed, you need to see it. And that's why we've taken so long with the LGBTQI movement, because it wasn't seen for so long. And now we're seeing more of it. So now people are coming out as more things. And I think as we see things more normalized, more things are going to come out, because people will find, actually, I relate to this or I relate to this, and it doesn't quite fit in that box. It fits in maybe a new box, and I'm going to create that box. So it is very important that we have people like you that attach themselves to a cause. And you're right. You can go through life, it is so many people want to, especially females, people please, and go through life being palatable to everyone. And I think that's one thing you would have had to decide it for yourself with this path you've chosen, and I certainly have to decide it for myself. Not everyone's going to agree with how I live my life. A lot of people are going to have some strong objections, actually, how I live my life. And I'm okay with that, because my view is, your opinion of me is your business. It's not my business. And if you want to not agree with what I do, that's fine. That's your right. But I'm not going to stop living my life. So I think it's very admirable of what you've done and to attach yourself and not just, be the pop singer that you can be, but doing it for what you believe in.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Has your approach to like your relationships or your romantic relationships changed since embracing your bisexuality?
Yeah, totally. It's been an interesting journey. So I did actually, when I came out as bi and when I was called not gay enough, and I heard it from places that we definitely shouldn't hear that from. I did feel this pressure to like, maybe I need to prove myself, and that was really sad. But then the more that I kind of relaxed into my sexuality, I actually ended up dating women naturally, not under duress. And so for 2 years, actually, I was in relationships with women, which was beautiful and traumatic. But incredible experiences, and I definitely learned a lot. And then I'm very fluid with, where I go. Like, I'm not like, now I'm going to date a guy. And it's hilarious to people who aren't queer. They think it's a very purposeful thing. Like, even my dad's like, so when you go out to a bar, like, how do you know who you're going to talk to? Like, I'm like, what do you mean, Dad? Like, you just talk to someone, and if you like them, you get their number. I'm like, you just, bless, I love you, Dad. But yeah, anyway, so the development of my openness has been interesting because it's not really everyone's flavor. And I've felt a lot of shame around that. And that's something that I've battled with myself, because I've wanted to change who I am to make someone love me. And I've tried several times. I don't recommend it. And so that was tough. And I did have a relationship where openness was explored, and that was really nice to do, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm now in love with a beautiful straight man, and who is very accepting and loving of who I am, and that's going to sort of evolve as it does. So I don't know, stay tuned.
I like what you said about, trying to make yourself be something different for a relationship. I certainly kind of, when I was always in the kind of kink scene since my early 20s, but open and E&M, all those types of relationships weren't really talked about back then. And then even though I met my daughter's father actually was in a threesome and I was actually seeing the other guy, and then he moved in with this guy. I was like, who is that? And I somehow talked myself into, I don't know how I managed it, but I was like, God, I'm good. And then we had a connection. But then once we got serious, it was kind of assumed monogamy. And that's what, it wasn't even spoken about, which I now look back and think of so strange. So even though something started off quite kinky and stuff and open for a while, once we decided it was serious, it was just like, it wasn't even a discussion. So once that relationship ended, I made a cognitive decision that I am going to find out the relationship type that works for me, because monogamy doesn't. But I've never cheated. I was very adamant about not cheating because I'm about honesty. And even though I didn't believe in that monogamy, I wasn't going to lie. And then I got through the process of going through these like trial and error relationships, it's like trialing what works, what didn't. And there was a few moments where I could have changed for that relationship to make it work. But I made the decision that it wasn't worth it for me, and that I was so committed to this cause. And I was so committed to live my life on the open and honest terms that I want. And I got to the point where it was, I would rather be alone than live in a relationship that's not authentic. And it was at that point that I met my now husband. So but I think it was almost like the universe testing me. It's like I had a few relationships where I could have easily gone back, and I'm like, no, it's just not worth it. And I think you get to that point where you don't want to change to be with someone, because in the long term, it's never going to work. But do you see any difference when you date a guy versus a girl?
Oh my God. Yes. Until the recent guy, I had, sorry dudes, pretty low opinions. So my, basically the way that I would sum up like dating a woman is like women are typically, you know, we're super thoughtful, we're carers, we multitask, we think ahead, you know, so we're like, okay, they're having like a rough day or they're having a big week. This is what I'm going to do to take things off their plate or to like add some peace to their week. And it's like just super thoughtful and caring. And all of the dudes I've dated to this point, it's so true. One I wrote a song about called Fuckboy, because that's all it needed to be. And so that they've all been just, I'm so sorry, but like selfish and like not all men, blah, blah, blah. But they just hadn't had that element of like care. And I realized dating women, I was like, I want someone who's going to bring what I bring. I don't want to be the person that is just giving all the time. I'm the only person here that thinks of you and that has your back in this way and, you know, takes care of you and does all these like sweet little things. Like, I don't want to be the only one bringing this to the table. And especially after dating women where I experienced what it was like for two people to both bring it, I was like, God, that needs to happen. Like, I need to be with someone who is like that, because it's just like I hear so many women, and it's more so straight women, that like talk about the relationships like that. Like, they talk about men and their husbands or partners like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing his washing, I'm having to tell him where I put his socks and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, oh, that's awful.
But I think sometimes they don't see an alternative.
No, because there isn't. And that's why I feel so sorry for anyone who isn't bi.
Well, I mean, there is alternatives. You talk. And this is the thing, like, I think even when you're my types of relationships, you know, I'm more in the open E&M community, is one thing that we have is a lot of communication. And it's probably, you know, same with now that you've been exposed to more queer relationships and different versions, you have to communicate a lot because you're doing something that wasn't set in society. So no one's dictating you how to do it. And I think, you know, so if you need to tell your partner you need to up your fucking game, you can say it. Where other people, they probably don't communicate it, is a lot of the time like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, well, have you actually said it? So I think a lot of the times people they just take it for as it is and they don't do anything about it.
Totally.
Do you think that society is embracing all types of sexuality now? Like, where do you think we are with it?
I think we've got a way to go still, definitely. But I think it's moving. It's moving in a direction that is positive, but there's still a bit of a way to go. You know, gayness, lesbianism, like that, I feel like has, you know, we've made a great headway with, pansexual, omnisexual, bisexual. You know, there's still a little bit more space. And then obviously when we look at the gender diverse community, non-binary, trans, there's still more room to move. But we're getting there, and everything counts. Like, and so that's why visibility is so important, because we're exposing people to, you know, ways of life that, like, it's not normal, like the way that like hetero society sees, you know, deems anything normal. And
also I think anything we look at with normative society is actually quite a blimp on history when we look at it. And there is a lot of proof of all different types of sexuality, gay, lesbian, bi, whatever it is, back in like ancient cave drawings even. So it's not like these are new concepts.
No, two-spirit people in Indigenous communities.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly.
So how do you live your most authentic life? Like at the moment, you've embraced who you are. Like for you, how do you think you're living your most authentic life?
I think I love that. Just being unapologetically myself. And sometimes you have to catch yourself because you do try to turn yourself down to be more palatable to people around you. But I'll just do little things like, you know, wear my clitoris earrings to gigs that are very straight. And I've had like guys walk up to me and be like, oh, those are cool earrings. Are they birds? I'm like, no, that's the clitoris, motherfucker. And you should know what this looks like because you should know how to fucking work this shit. So I get my feminist rage and my bi-ness on, but I wear like bisexual earrings. It's just like, it's small little things, but like when you know, you know. And if anyone says like, oh my God, I love these earrings, they're such pretty colors. I'm like, it's the bisexual flag. So that's why you love it.
That. It is good to be in your own skin.
Yeah.
There's no better outfit than being in your own skin. What advice would you give to someone struggling with their own identity?
Show yourself love. Sit with yourself and take out all of the voices of shame and guilt that penetrate your field and protect yourself, because all anybody wants is love. That's what we all want. We all want love and acceptance. And the more that we shame and guilt ourselves into trying to be something we're not, the further away we are from our authenticity. And I think the bisexual experience is, you know, it's so gradual, like because there's so many questions around, am I here, am I there? And we're always presented the two boxes. So then we have to be like, no, I'm drawing a box somewhere else and I'm going to put myself in that instead. So just be patient and kind with yourself and curious. Curiosity is so beautiful, and know that the community that you belong to will love you. And that's what I experienced when I came out as bi and I started performing in the bi community and I was around these people. I remember the first thing I did, I performed at, it was for Biconic, which is a beautiful bisexual community that I wrote a song for. And someone at the end of their performance said, no matter how you identify or who you are with, like whatever partner you have, how they identify, if you are bisexual, you're bisexual, and that doesn't change. And I just sat there by myself and I cried because I was like, wow, no one's ever said that. I've never heard those words, but I wanted it to be true. So, yeah.
I think that's a good point. You said no matter who you're with at the moment doesn't define you, because I do feel that, because at times I now define myself as sapiosexual, I've found now. Which for people who don't know, that is I more fall in love with people's minds, or I'm attracted, that's what turns me on, is more the people's minds. But I used to identify as bisexual, so I don't know, I'm half maybe, whatever I am, I don't really care. But because I'm married to a man, it's like, well, does that diminish me being bisexual to females? And even though I now, because I'm open to EMM, I still date women, and sometimes me and my husband date women together. But you're right, it doesn't matter I'm married to a man. It doesn't matter if I'm dating a girl or not at the time. Maybe I will just be with my husband for a time. Like, it doesn't change who I am, and that's what's important, is you know who you are. And your present situation or your future one doesn't change or define that.
100%.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was so special to meet you, and keep doing what you're doing, being loud and proud, and don't shut up, because I love it and you have beautiful things to say.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, Penny, for coming on. Where can people find you? Pimp yourself out quickly.
Oh, yes. So you can find me on Instagram under I am the Penelope, and you can find me on Spotify under Penelope, all caps. And those are the two main ones.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining again, and as always, stay kinky.